When it comes to Batman, I'm a fan. But my buddy Chuck, who reviews games with me here on the channel, he's a bona fide Batman superfan. His collection is genuinely impressive, bordering on insane. And this week we've been reviewing Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. And it's undeniably a hell of a lot of fun, and I like it a lot. But again, I'm just a fan. The real question is, can this multi-generational Batman mashup pass the adult superfan smell test? Let's find out. As a guy who came of age in the 80s and 90s, I've always loved Batman. The 1989 Tim Burton movie with Michael Keaton looms large in superhero films for me. And Batman the Animated Series might be the finest narrative cartoon of all time, in my opinion. But if I'm a fan of the Caped Crusader, then my friend Chuck is a fanatic. And it's genuine, not just for show. His knowledge of DC Comics runs deep. Every game, every movie, graphic novels, comics, he's just always loved the world and the characters of Gotham. And I'm grateful that he's my partner in crime here at FXG, because who better to review a Lego Batman game with than a guy who actually has a Lego Batmobile and a Lego Batwing sitting in the room in his house where his wife lets him keep stuff like that. The game is Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, and we both played it on PS5 Pro, though it's not actually Pro enhanced. It landed today on Xbox Series consoles, Switch 2, PS5, and PC. We've both been playing it nonstop, and we've had a lot of opinions on its storytelling, its graphics, and how it uses the Lego conceit throughout the game. But when we sat down to review it, we first talked about just what this game really is in terms of stitching together so many different Batman narratives across so many different years and generations.
It's hard to imagine someone coming in totally blind to either the Lego universe or the Batman universe, but for anyone who is, it's a super accessible and playful journey through the Batman mythos. I think that for someone who knows nothing about Batman or nothing about Lego, just the engaging gameplay and the engaging world is enough to justify the price of admission on this one.
Talk about the ambition of the storytelling in terms of just like how much Batman it stuffs in here. Like, is this comics on top of movies, on top of graphic novels, on top of animated series? Is there like a particular era that it focuses on? Does it try to do a little bit of everything?
I find myself wishing it dove a little deeper into comic lore. It's very much a tour through Batman on screen. But what's cool about that is if you scratch at the surface a little bit, that's where a lot of the kind of niche comic lore is. So I think that you have been playing through the game at a faster pace than I have, because my eye keeps getting caught by, a random wanted poster that references Julie Newmar, who played Catwoman in the '66 series. So there's all those little things sprinkled throughout the world that are catching my eye, probably in a different way than someone who is only familiar with the Nolan trilogy or the recent Robert Pattinson movie.
I love that the game has fan service to that level, that you would catch like the actress from the 66 Batman, I think it is. For me, it's like I'm playing through it and I'm almost less thinking about it from the perspective of the Batman service and more like, where does it fit in with the Lego games in general? And something I think maybe is better on this one than in any that I've played previously is like the Lego element kind of fades in and out elegantly, right? It's like sometimes you're very aware that you're playing a Lego game, but there definitely have been times that I've been able to like get lost in a little Batman storytelling, certainly get lost in just a fun gameplay loop, but also getting lost in a lot of comedy. There's almost like a Naked Gun level of parody and satire going on in here. I'm sure you're picking up on a ton of comedy specifically that is like rooted in the Batman world.
Very much so. I think that something that struck me is that so much of the humor comes from deep character nuance. One of my favorites has kind of been the take on Alfred that they've been doing, which from the voice performance is very much anchored in Michael Caine's performance of Alfred, but just the kind of sad sack put upon, like he's just this old man butler puttering around the Batcave. And fundamentally, without all the mythos around him, that's all Alfred is. And to kind of exploit this dude's weird, kind of shitty relationship with Bruce Wayne as the long-suffering servant of Bruce Wayne and Batman has been an absolute delight. I am laughing out loud every session that I sit down to play this game, and the rest of it, I'm just grinning like an idiot for all of just the Easter eggs and the joy of experiencing it through the Lego lens. For me, kind of the biggest nitpick on the game is the writing and the kind of lack of framing device. When it comes to Batman in particular, I don't envy anyone who has to step into the shoes of Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy is the definitive voice of Batman. Obviously not the definitive face, but when you hear Batman's voice in your mind, I am sure that I am not alone in hearing Kevin Conroy in my mind. So that aside, though, I do wish the game had more of a meta-narrative to it. I wish the game had a bit more of a framing device, excusing the introduction of all of these characters from all of these different Batman universes being mashed up together. We have Will Arnett. Will Arnett is the voice of Lego Batman. You know, obviously, I don't know everything about budgets or schedules or contracts that went into making this game, but I think if we had anchored it in a Lego Batman that we know, it kind of excuses the mashup around him, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of meta narrative around it, so it at times, and it's weird that I'm framing this as a criticism, but sometimes it feels a little too fan service heavy in that they're not also engaging you with a narrative, but focusing on engaging you in, oh, look at how cool this is. You saw this in the '89 movie, you know?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's like it feels more like they're trying to make the perfect homage as opposed to the perfect stitch up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're not trying to perfectly stitch together all these stories as one cohesive story. They're just trying to give you the experience of letting all of these different stories wash over you without the, confusion of changing Batman from point to point. I do think that, like, in a certain sense, the choice to approach it that way, I think, is almost tougher than like the Lego Skywalker Legacy series, where you are very clearly delineated into different episodes, where we are used to seeing the sort of progression of these characters. Whereas in this case, we're talking about Batmans, or Batmen, I guess you would call it, like, that exist in different universes and are totally separate from one another. But at the same time, I also, speaking of Kevin Conroy, like, something about Lego Batman that really works is that they drew Kevin Conroy as such like a thick character with such like a thick, heavy set jaw that somehow like Lego Batman looks right because of the way they always drew Batman in the animated series to me. But talk a little bit about the way the game looks. And as someone who's a longtime fan of the artwork, how does the mashup of like the Lego universe and the Batman touches work for you? And how did you feel about like the graphical approach to the game?
I have no complaints. The Gotham is obviously kind of cribbed from the design of the Arkham trilogy, which, knowing that developers from Rocksteady also worked on this, makes a lot of sense, especially with the introduction of the Arkham combat style and the kind of Arkham gadgets like the foam, the spray gun that explodes walls and stuff like that. So the DNA of the Arkham trilogy is, I think, smartly baked in, and it's something that I think elevates it beyond just Lego fan service game, in that it's also fan servicing the experience of playing the Arkham games. So to kind of have Gotham designed in that way plays right into the strengths of how they've chosen to kind of elevate the combat beyond your usual Lego game combat experience.
Talking about like the open world element of the game, I think that that's something that's been much talked about in the run up to the game and sort of as the game has started to come out publicly. And it's definitely there, and it's definitely cool. And it reminds me a little more of Lego City than of some of like the Lego Marvel games and things. But I don't know about you, it's like the world looks beautiful, but it feels like a lot of the open world elements are less like open world and more playground. It seems to me like they're not there to create a fully realized living and breathing Gotham. It's more just to give you a Gotham to play in and to give you connective tissue from one mission to the next.
It's pretty far into the game by the time you get Batgirl, who gives you the ability to open up those radio towers, which then all of a sudden reveal the hundreds of millions of additional quest markers and challenges and trophy hunting. But that pulls you through the world in an engaging way, but just like you said, more of a playground. It's not a Crimson Desert or a Skyrim where it's, oh, I wonder what's over that hill. Those additional quests and challenges are just inviting you to zip around and glide somewhere different or glide from a new height. So those challenges, rather than driving exploration, I think drive engagement.
The game is largely meant to be played linearly, but there's all of this content that is there to keep you sated once the main course is done. I give all of the Lego games a ton of credit for just providing a lot of content for players and a lot of value for players. I think this one is head and shoulders above it. But let's talk more specifically about the gameplay. We've been talking about the gameplay a little bit, and I think we both have the same sense, which is that it's evolved a little bit further than some Lego games. For me, there is, in every Lego game, this one maybe less than others, but it's still there. There's a certain level of, I wouldn't call it monotony, I would just call it repetition. It's like, it's always fun, but the combat can get to a point where it becomes repetitive. I think the game does a good job of giving you other playable characters, and if you're playing solo, giving you the mechanic of switching characters for different tasks. I think that mixes it up enough, and I think overall the gameplay is satisfying. But for someone who, again, has way more experience than I do, what you've put way more hours into the Arkham games, you ended up putting more hours into Suicide Squad than I did. How does the gameplay hold up for you? Does it stand that test, or does it feel too sort of dumbed down like a kid's title? Where does that balance lie for you?
I think the best way to answer that is that this is what I've realized while playing this is kind of my version of a cozy game, right? There are people who love planting corn and harvesting it over and over again because they find it soothing and relaxing. This probably says more about me, but Gotham is kind of my cozy place. Between quests or between challenges, just running around punching dumpsters for studs is my version of harvesting corn in those kind of cozy games. So the combat is elevated, so it's engaging there for people who are looking for something a little more engaging than your traditional Lego game experience. But for me, it's just the coziness of it. Once you get into that flow of dodging and countering, I kind of giggled to myself the first time I hit that flow of bouncing between enemies, because it triggered Arkham memories in me, which is kind of the whole point of this game, right? Is to tickle that nostalgia and to kind of trigger those sense memories, and this game does that in spades. Is it the level of Arkham combat? No, it's a little slower, it's a little clunkier, but the DNA is there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the mechanics actually are sufficiently complex. They're just forgiving enough to make the game something that you could sit with your son and daughter and enjoy, even if they're a younger player. I feel like the game has complex enough mechanics. You know, it's like we played Suicide Squad last year, or maybe it was the year before, and we had a lot of fun with it and left it in the past pretty quickly. I could actually say that I think this one is actually somehow more capable of holding my attention than that game that was clearly designed for older players. But as much as I'm delighted by this game and as much as I've been having a good time with it, there are definitely little things that I still think could be improved about the experience and that would make it better for players. You know, I've expressed to you, I miss there being a mini map. I wish there was a mini map in the game just for help with navigation in what is already a pretty condensed set of streets to get the Batmobile around and stuff. That's such a minor thing, but I'm more interested for someone like you who does have a pretty incredible depth of knowledge. Like, are there nitpicks for you? What are some of the things that, you know, that we haven't touched on that didn't work for you?
I think it's more of missed opportunities than it is nitpicks with what they produced. One of the biggest ones for me is I think that Lego as a company does such an amazing job of towing that line between childhood and adult collectors. And I wish that this game, while obviously being focused for younger players, I wish that it did do a little more service to the older players with kind of a deeper, richer knowledge already. I wish there was more of a codex that was a little more robust. They're such a big deal, and it is so satisfying watching your Batcave fill up with all the different vehicles and all the 100-some-odd different bat suits. But they all come with just kind of like a cheeky little Lego kid description, and I was looking for something a little more with the depth of like the Assassin's Creed history tour. Like, I want a full portfolio on that. Show me some stills of it in comics. Show me some comic cells of that suit in action. I wish that they had included that, not as something you have to engage with, but something for the more adult-oriented player looking for kind of a more intellectually engaging experience, that the museum quality was kind of there, especially for a game called Legacy of the Dark Knight that is designed to pay such loving homage to the total history and the total lore of Batman on page and on screen. I wish that they went a little more in depth with that kind of museum element.
You're right. It's a missed opportunity. It could have been done in such a cool comic styling. That being said, though, credit to Lego for just how much they are able to include in here. I love this kind of game. This kind of game takes me back to like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game or Streets of Rage. And there's part of me wishes that some developers out there would take some classic properties like this and create this kind of game just without the Lego conceit. But at least Lego is doing it, right? Like, I'm glad that we get to look back with classic franchises to this kind of more streamlined, just fun for the sake of it, hero gameplay. But we're reviewing the game as it is. It's Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. So you're someone who's sitting in a room surrounded by figures, surrounded by a Batman cowl, by legitimate Lego Batman. Like, you have a 1989 Batmobile and you have the Batwing. You are the definition of a super fan. Does this game belong in that room? As an adult gamer who doesn't have kids, but who has held on to the childlike wonder of this comic book character and has enjoyed him into adulthood with much more mature storylines, does this game deserve a place? Does it meet that smell test?
100%. 100% it does. And it kind of gave me an opportunity to reflect on the fandom a little. One of the coolest things was that mural in the Batcave. And as it started to come together, I just had to look up a little bit over my TV screen, and I have that Lego set hanging directly over the TV as that mural is coming together. It ticks all the childhood Batman love boxes, and it is certainly engaging enough for my kind of adult version of the fandom as well, 100%.
Super fans have nitpicks, but they come from a place of love, care, and concern, you know? And so I'm glad that your ultimate verdict is that you really love it. And, you know, you're a more casual fan like me, I think you're going to love this game and have a lot of fun with it. I think if you're a super fan like you, you're actually going to enjoy it even more, despite maybe having some nitpicks. And I think that means that the game deserves the praise it's getting. It's sitting at 84 on Metacritic right now. We don't do numbers, but like, that feels right. This game being reviewed as one of the better games of the year so far, in a year that's already had a lot of good games, feels right. This game is worth gamers' time, for sure. And that's our bottom line. We think this one is a win. Whether you're young or old, fan or super fan, you're destined to have a lot of crime-fighting fun with Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. And if you've enjoyed Lego games before, we think you'll find that this one is tops. But what about you? Are you planning to pick this one up? Did you already dive in? Or are Lego games not really your style? Drop a note in the comments and let me know. I'd be glad to hear from you. Till next time, I'm Owen, the Friendly Xennial Gamer. Thanks so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and click like and share to help more viewers find their way here too. Thanks for watching.